7, we have no policy items. We're on to item 8.1, the administrative items, Emeryville-Berkeley-Oakland Transit EBOT study. This is Charlie and Diana Keenan.
Yes. So, as Mayor Asher said, this item is about the Emeryville-Berkeley-Oakland Transit Study, whose purpose is to think about transit in Emeryville, West Oakland, and West Berkeley, how this area can be better connected to itself and to regional destinations and regional transit. This is the last meeting in the first rounds of meetings where we're assessing needs, and then we'll come back in the spring, summer with options, and then a draft report, and in January you'll see a final report. There are many kinds of transit improvement options that could be considered as part of this study. Near-term changes to bus routes, maybe shuttles, frequency, hours of service, last mile station amenities. Midterm would be something like a new bus service or bus lanes, transit center improvements, bike sharing. Long-term is when we start thinking about a streetcar or full-scale bus rapid transit, which the two pictures on the left are bus rapid transit infrastructure, and the one on the right is a streetcar. The community has told us that attracting development requires incentives and marketing, that parking or travel lanes maybe could be removed on some streets with, maybe we could close the door.
Oh.
We'll be gone in a minute.
Hey, Diana, can you hang on a second?
Yeah,
Down
here. Just
That's
push them down
that's
the stair.
disruptive. Can you close the door, Sabrina?
I don't know if
Well, we
they're gone
can't
now.
because
They're
people have
downstairs.
to be able to
Okay.
come in. Okay,
So
they-
actually, our policy advisory committee said you need to do other things besides just transit to attract development, and maybe we could be able to take parking or travel lanes in some situations if we negotiate with the businesses. And then the community said we need more frequent service, more in the evening and weekend, accurate next bus information and coordination, and that the Emery Ground should go to West Oakland BART station, should have more peak hour service, be more reliable, and serve the Watergate condos. West Berkeley and West Oakland want one too. And stops should be safe, well-lighted, clean, and well-maintained. And then their bicyclist requests, bike lanes, awareness signs, bridges over the railroad tracks, and the marina service should be restored. The Planning Commission wants connections to the waterfronts, shopping, West Oakland BART, downtown Berkeley, 4th Street, and University Avenue. Fewer stops on the F line, and a campaign to get people to exit the rear door.
I'm with that.
Frequency, longer hours, more reliability, bus stop maintenance, lighting, and safety, clean fuel vehicles, a possibility of giving up parking and requiring pullouts and shelters, and requiring transit passes and new development, and transit funding needs stable sources. There are funding sources, potential state, federal, and local tax measures, grants, private, public partnerships, private sponsored transit, and fare box among them. And all I want to hear from you is, what trips do people take or wish they could take? What problems do people have? What ideas or desires do people have? What trade-offs on the streets, vehicle lanes, and parking would be acceptable? And what sources of funding would be appropriate?
Can I start with the last question, if we're responding now, or if we have questions?
Any questions before you respond?
Sounds like.
No, okay, yes, go.
I come back to how this is a regional problem, and that's why we've included Berkeley and Oakland in this, but I think it's actually larger than just our three municipalities, and I see it that we're looking for regional solutions as well. So, and that includes funding. So whether it's ACTC or whether we take it to the MTC level, I know that new funds will be available as California is coming into compliance with SB 375 and cap and trade as well as part of that. And I encourage additional delving into other funding sources that are not just generated here within Emeryville. A regional solution, and that goes actually for transit agencies and running of that as well. That it's one thing to put an Emery-Go-Round shuttle here, and then you'll have your West Oakland BART shuttle that'll go there, and then you'll have your West Berkeley shuttle. I don't think that's a very good way. The infrastructure that's required in the administration to make something like that work, I think has gotten us into this mess in a way in the region. And I would like to see a little more regional cooperation and a larger entity perhaps that can support good transit. And I hope those folks are in the room when you're discussing that, because I've seen that at least some of these committees include only kind of the local folks. I'm not sure if it was the policy advisory committee or is the technical advisory committee that had the more regional entities
The
represented.
technical advisory committee includes someone from MTC, someone from the county ACTC, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and also, of course, BART and AC Transit and Capital Corridor and the shuttle services.
To the
And the
transit
Policy
agency.
Advisory Committee includes elected and appointed officials from those same entities.
Ruth wants to
That's
reply
it.
to Jennifer.
So later this week, I'm going to be at a meeting about the transportation sales tax measures revised expenditure plan. And there's a pot of money that explicitly lists shuttles as fitting underneath that. Not only have they been made aware of the threats to the go-round, but there are other shuttles that are also in danger. It could be something that could be funded. Something like this could be funded through the Transportation Commission under the Technology and Innovation category.
So it's contained in the current, I think it's called the TEP, the list of projects that could be funded under the sales tax measure.
Under the category of Technology and Innovation, shuttles will be named in that.
Thank you. That's good information.
Nora, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question. These first three discussion questions, that's the kind of thing I wanted the answers to from the report that's going to come back from the EBOTS people. You know, what you would get from us, either in total or individually, would be kind of a very small sample. So that's what I'm looking for. I was a little disappointed with the numbers of people who turned out to show up at the meetings. I was at the one in Emeryville, and we had the most people, I think, of all the other. But there hasn't been enough publicity or enough buzz about this to get people really thinking about a concerted way to have people move north, south, you know, Berkeley, Emeryville, and Oakland.
We did get 800 responses to the survey. So people didn't come out to the meeting, but they did respond to the survey. So our consultants are going to take all the input that they received and put that in the report.
Good.
And in terms of the fourth question, the trade-off, the vehicle lanes, the parking, these are very, as you know, real hot button issues, vehicle lanes and parking. We saw that when AC Transit tried to get their rapid transit, you know, through from San Leandro through to Berkeley. So I don't know what the value is of discussing this now until we get further information. I don't know how everybody else feels
I
about
agree.
that. We need more substantive information back from the transit study. At least I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Santa Claus was his wish list.
Right.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
That's the first part of the planning process, is making the wish list.
Right.
And then we'll be bringing options back in the spring.
Good.
So I'd be happy to kind of amplify or reiterate some of the things that I've heard from people in town and also from my own experience. The most common complaint I get, and I heard it this morning from a volunteer that I work with who takes Emery-Go-Round, is that it's just not reliable enough and it's not robust enough. It doesn't come frequently enough so that if one bus doesn't show up, folks are there waiting 20, 30 minutes to get to BART where they need to go. I agree with one of the comments in there about giving out more transit passes and requiring that in this entire area for new development projects, because transit passes have been shown to, well, it's different if you have free transit.
Yeah.
So it's one or the other, I suppose. Although free transit competes with AC Transit in a way that decimates their ridership, I would think, if they're redundant. So either free transit or transit passes, which can also help reduce parking requirements, which saves huge amounts of money in terms of capital costs. But this is operating and maintenance, or operating costs for transit passes. It's a little different pots of funds. Did you want to say something, Ruth?
Yeah, I would just say that the money that that is spent on the go-round, AC Transit doesn't serve us as well, and they wouldn't with that amount of money either. So
I think they used to have more service here. I've heard.
Yeah, but it was
before.
never. It's not as good.
Okay.
Even at its most robust, it wasn't as good as what we have now with the go-round.
But it went other places besides MacArthur-Bart.
True.
So if you could connect the map that Diana showed us connects, I think it was the 19. Is that what was taken away?
That went
I think,
down
from the service?
Hollis and 6th Street in Berkeley.
Right. So there are other places that people want to get to that are hard to get to if you're not trying to get to MacArthur-Bart or somewhere else close by. I mentioned already about funding being regional, but I think it also needs to be steady, which is kind of like a duh.
It's very hard.
And hard. And also it needs to be controlled by public entities. I think what we've seen recently is a concern around that and who's making the decisions. And I want to talk about transit's reach and the way to measure that. When Kurt mentioned the importance of having jobs nearby, I agree, and I think I've seen transit measured as how many jobs can be accessed by transit within a certain amount of time. So it's like a travel shed or commute shed, I think it's called. And perhaps that could be incorporated as part of this. And you know, at some places people live, it's like, oh, I can get there within a half an hour. That's great. Well, if we live in Emeryville, getting somewhere within a half an hour isn't great. Actually, I think we have maybe a different standard for how far or how long it should take to get somewhere. We want it to be quicker than that. I mentioned not a whole bunch of small agencies. I don't think that's the best way to deliver good transit. And to combine efforts really with car sharing locations, bike ped improvements. We've heard a lot of those. I think good ideas were raised, but really, this has to be done in concert with those other efforts. It's not all by itself. Last year, when we were talking in Emeryville about reducing parking and putting in green curbs in the North Hollis area, you know, some people were saying, you take away our parking, but we don't have alternative ways to get places. That's not fair to people who are impacted by that. And it's chicken and egg. You don't know which to do first. But having a push, having the emphasis on finding good transit solutions, I think, is a step. I'd like to see more input, more public engagement always, and to hear more of what's discussed even at the technical advisory committee. I feel like this report produced comments from the community workshops, and the policy advisory folks were listed, but not the technical advisory, and I'm curious what other conversations, or maybe that was incorporated and it just wasn't explicitly stated, but what other conversations are coming out of that? I'm willing to look at reducing parking for more efficient transit as well, although we have a reduced number of streets in town that we can do that for sure. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah, well, just to take, like, for an N of 1 to try to get a little more feedback like what you just did. I do think we need better service to UC, that there's a lot of students and employees that need to get to UC Berkeley better, and there's not good public transportation there. So I know that that's not really the geographic bounds of the EBOTS study that was, I thought it was kind of maintained to West Berkeley.
We're looking at how to connect the area to itself and to regional transit and to regional destinations.
So
that's one of them.
So, you know, I made some comments on an earlier agenda item, just kind of obliquely referencing the fact that our intellectual engine is UC Berkeley, and I think we need to invest some capital into that in terms of increasing the connections there with the university, because that's going to reap all kinds of benefits. So in terms of a destination, and I think we need a combination of transportation from home and work, and then home and play, however that's defined in this particular area. But I know I walk to the movies in town. I don't get into a car, you know, and it would be nice if, to do that, it'd be nice if this kind of transit could somehow incentivize people taking it to play, and not just for utilitarian reasons.
And the only thing I'll add, Diana, is that the comments that I hear from residents are the extension to West Oakland BART, right? So an easier way to get over there. And then also anything we can do to improve bike safety on San Pablo. Planning ahead for that is fine, but if there's some, it's fine to have a grand vision, but if there's some kind of intermediate measures that could be taken with that, because people do ride along San Pablo and it's extremely dangerous.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Sharrows idea. Oakland has Sharrows.
Yeah. I'll stop the truck.
Okay.
That's a what?
All right.
I'll definitely stop the truck.
Is that everything you need, Diana?
It scares me.
Okay.
I won't
All right.
ride.
Thank you.